John Murphy waiting patiently, the assistant general manager of the Toronto Argonauts, and he's going to join us right now. So right from a ration to John, hey, appreciate you being so patient with that this morning. John, how are you?
Doing excellent. I was able to nap through most of that.
Of course you were. I'm going to turn these guys loose. They got the football questions. They've been doing their homework, John, but you have too.
Plus I was able to enjoy the Tony Eason throwback that he's wearing over
there. That's pretty good, hey? Yeah. But you've been busy, man. What's it been like the last week in your world?
Well, I think that having that open window was quite exciting and very unique, something the CFL tried. And I think it definitely got like kind of hot stove CFL was sort of the lay of the land. And anytime you can consistently have the CFL in the news for an entire week while the Raptors are on a 12, 15 game winning streak and the Leafs are in the middle of their season, for any CFL talk to be going on in the city of Toronto, I think makes it a good thing. And I think you saw that all around the league, right? For the first time and a long time, the Calgary Stampeders were in on free agency. Pretty much every team was in on this conversation. So I think it was great for the league to be able to hear from Huff, hear from Ed Hervey, hear from Brock, and throughout the whole league. And then I think it was an exciting 24, 48 hours for pretty much all of the teams, in the league for their fans and the media to see so much movement.
Hey, John, Craig Smith. You pretty much added 14 or so players, and you lost about 15. I mean, you went at it hard. What can you say about all that, all the different transactions and stuff like that? You really solidified the quarterbacking position, which was necessary, and now you're ready to roll.
Yeah, I think and you're this better than most. It's our job to find the Americans, right? I mean, If you can't do that, you're in the wrong business, and you have no business doing it. For us, if there was a tie in terms of talent and finances, we were going to kind of lean toward going after the Canadian player and saying that our scouting and developing and the coaching staff we hired is there to develop the young Americans. And then we had an idea that there was a really good chance that of the guys we would be losing, two of them would be kind of higher end content of Canadian talent. So to now kind of spread that around and have 7, 8, 9 options, for guys that can start and play as Canadians. I think that now leads us, in a good direction, having a lot of draft capital and the draft, prospects now are even that much more valuable because it's, multiple controllable years at a good salary. So if you draft wisely and have everybody involved like we plan to, I think we can then start moving in a direction of where, your content with Canadians is not something that's up for grabs on a yearly basis. And also the important thing for us was acknowledging, what's been said, which is Toronto is not for everyone. And we 100% agree, with that statement. But we also say that there are guys that are from here that want to come here. And there's other guys that have lived other places that were born and raised here that would like to come back. So our door will be open to any and all of those guys. And for the ones that it doesn't fit, we're appreciative of their time being here, and we wish them nothing but the best.
John Lynch here, John. Good to see you again. What's the story with the fans now in Toronto? Are they turned on at all? Are you going to be able to turn that around? Anybody can turn it around. You can.
Well, I appreciate that. I think the biggest thing is you have to give them a reason to believe, right? Every fan of any team that's been struggling, what they want is hope. That's all they'll have until training camp is hope and some new bios to read through. But, I think that's what you're offering is that, hey, we didn't do things exactly the same way, as been done in the past. There was a different idea, for how to approach this. And once the lay of the land presented itself to go after some really quality players and maybe double up and sometimes triple up based off of the salaries that were outgoing, being able to add, like Craig said, 14 or 15 guys, and it came at, lesser salary combined than the 14 or 15 that left. It still leaves us a good opportunity to attack the next wave of free agency if it comes. Gives us some money to use in the fall, depending on our situation and who's coming back from the XFL or from the NFL, to our league. And then, like I said, having those 4 or 5 picks in the top 25, I think lays a good foundation for what can happen moving forward.
John Murphy is the assistant general manager of the Toronto Argonauts, and you mentioned hope. If anybody can deliver hope, it's got to be pinball, right? I mean, what's that been like? It's a breath of fresh air to have him back in the Canadian Football League.
Right, and you know the most interesting part is, and there might be someone who knows the answer to this. I'm not sure if anyone has ever been able to pull off the trifecta in terms of winning a Grey Cup as a player, as a coach, and then as a front office or GM. And, you know, like, so now when you see how much time and effort and energy, you know, he's putting into this, you know, to provide that opportunity, you know, to him, you know, to have him there in the office, I think every day. And even where you saw at the end of last season, you know, in the locker room and interacting with the coaches and staff, I think that's really going to have the fans trust to believe that there is the opportunity to turn things around and, you know, to get back on track. And if they needed any element to see that, just happened. It happened a year ago in Montreal, where they struck lightning in a bottle, and the organization did a great job of turning that into to ticket sales, into marketing opportunities, to a great turnout for their home games down the stretch and into the playoffs. And so I think you saw an organization where all aspects of their club were working well in unison together. And I think, you know, rebranding and redoing things here, and having pinball at the forefront of it, like you said, will do nothing but help our fans engage with our team.
Hey, John, will you be heading down south on the free agent camp circuit, looking for those gems?
Yeah, so you know, that's the next step. Is you know, we'll have a couple of weeks to look into some of that, then come back for the couple of workouts leading up to the combine, and then throughout March and April do a couple of other camps, and then I think we're going to focus our concentration on maybe keeping a couple of those camps for right before the season starts, and then keeping 2 for in season that we can do kind of leading around NFL cuts or that second bye week that we have right before the fall.
You've been around here a long time, John. You've seen the good and the bad of this league. Going into 2020, I hear pros and cons. How do you see things? What's the status of the league from your point of view? Good, bad, indifferent?
No, I think, you know, doing things differently. I think the outside the box theories of, you know, trying, you know, to engage this global idea, looking for Canadian content, you know, in areas you know, we haven't found them. Right. We're in the process of, you know, seeing an NFL guy, you know, potentially come back to the CFL recently. You know, coincidentally, he's also the son of one of our coaches. But, you know, to find a Canadian athlete that's playing a different sport but has a background, you know, in football, and looking to possibly convert him, you know, from rugby back to football, you know, as a Canadian is an exciting opportunity and idea, you know, for us to engage upon. And I think the next step is, you know, we want to see who's the next guy, right? You saw last year, you know, it was Fajardo, and a few years ago, you know, it was Bo Levi Mitchell, and you know, then in Hamilton first with Mazzoli, and now with Dane Evans. You know, who's that next quarterback? Who's that next wave, you know, of superstar that's going to come into our league and help grow our product? But I think anytime people are watching it in the States, they have a different appreciation for our game. It's different, but different doesn't mean, you know, any better or worse. It means it's different. And there's a lot of exciting players in our league that get to be seen, you know, throughout North America. And I think the idea of expanding and putting it globally means there's, you know, people around the world, you know, wearing our logos or watching our games or, you know, seeing our content. It just kind of raises the level and expectation of all the teams, you know, to kind of take, you know, to ramp up, you know, that aspect of things. And I think that's, you know, one of the primary factors here is we have to be more creative with how we do things and how we get our fans back engaged. And I think, you know, pulling out kind of all the stops in order to do that is something we're planning on doing.
Just a couple more for you, John, then we'll let you go. How close were you in getting Willie to come to Toronto? Did you feel close in signing Jefferson?
Well, I think the interesting part there, you know, never was it to make him the highest paid player in the league. It was, you know, more shared as, you know, you tell me what it would take for you to feel comfortable coming here, for this to be where you want to be, you know, to make this your home. And then also at the same exact time when they were here, half of the time that Willie and his family were here was spent not engaging them and allowing them the time to just be here, look around the city for themselves, see that if you live in downtown Toronto, it's also 15 or 20 minutes, from living in the suburbs as much as there is stuff to do downtown, right? And at the end of the day, if his choice and decision was to go for back-to-back Grey Cups with his teammates, and that he would prefer to raise his family not in a big city atmosphere, number one, we respect it, and number two, we wouldn't have changed anything we did in order to bring him here or recruit him here, because I think there are a lot of guys that are now around the league who know you can't sit courtside at a Raptors game. If you're in any other city in the CFL, you don't have the off-field opportunities that you have here. TSN is right here in our backyard, and so the opportunities are endless if this is where you want to be. And I'll continue to say that I wholeheartedly agree with the decisions that James made and Willie made, and also Sean, our own guy Sean McEwen. Sometimes you have to celebrate that people have decisions to make, and that I'd love nothing more, right? If the CFL announced that they were having an expansion team in New York or New Orleans, I'd be hard pressed to say that I wouldn't ask the Argos for the opportunity to interview or speak to those teams, right? If somebody offered any of you three, an opportunity to do your job and be in front of your friends and family, we'd all like that opportunity. So the fact that that's what Willie and Sean and James and a few others had the opportunity to do, there'll be a time and place where free agents who are from Ontario now know that they'd like to be here, and we'll welcome them with open arms.
We need more people like that want what's best for the players, and I think that's a big reason why players are going to want to play for you out in Toronto. And the last one comes from our producer, Clark. He mentions Deveris Daniels and Canadian receivers brought in. He wants to know what the new Air Force in Toronto is going to look like this season.
Well, hopefully there'll be more than just a few flyovers. We prefer that those flyovers happen kind of during the four quarters of the game and not just pregame after the anthem. But I think it is given a little different look, right? You have the opportunity after drafting a guy like Curly Gittins and having Levi already here from a past draft, and then knowing that Juwan and Devaris were interested not only in playing in Toronto but coming and playing together. That was kind of a unique part of learning last week when we talked to both of them, that they were training together. They knew each other from Calgary. They had talked about it a little bit, last year, with things. So continuing and stroking that conversation over the weekend, and then allowing it to be something that they continued, to talk about, through the morning of free agency, I think allowed those deals to kind of happen a little quicker than they would have if they didn't know about Toronto, or they didn't know, that idea of, possibly coming together. And then, like I said, I think it's a great opportunity to give your ratio some flexibility. And the one thing we've seen, whether it's the old Montreal and BC teams with Wally and the success that Jim Pop and those guys had in Montreal, or it's what Huff has done there, or what J.O. and Craig did last year, out in Saskatchewan. When you have ratio flexibility and good quarterback play, a lot of other things can get covered over, and you can live and die through a season, with the ebbs and flows of injuries and inconsistency. You can win a lot of games if your Canadian content is there on a weekly basis.
John, really appreciate this. Great catching up with you. And when you guys come through in early July, we'll have the coffee on, the seat will be warm, and we'd love to see you down here in the bunker. Appreciate this.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Hopefully Tony Easton will not be sitting next to me.
No, we'll make sure of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Gregor.
Yeah, take care, hey.
All right.
See you guys.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.